come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready. Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Pretty impressive, Roger, that we have a dog that can properly pronounce the word disseminated and knows how to use it in context. So I don't know if you've ever had a pooch that is quite at the level of Wookie, and he's handsome too.
Wookie's quite the guy. Yeah, he's quite the guy.
Yeah, he's not happy right at the moment because he is when he does these shows down here in the Rainbow Studio, he gets to sit right where the computer is that I'm using to do the show, and so he's been relegated to a side bench, and he's not pleased. And I'm sure it's in his contract that he would get better than this. Speaking of getting better than this, Rahab, the dumpster, is in quite the pickle now. He is absolutely convinced that he and the Iranians negotiated a deal and that he had his deal all worked out with them, didn't he? And then what happened? All of a sudden, there was no deal. And that the deal that he said he negotiated, he went so far as to say, well, nobody really knows the deal that I'm negotiating because I haven't even disclosed it yet. Well, then why did you say that it had been agreed to? And why did you state what the terms were going to be? And then now why are you going back and saying, oh, by the way, I've changed the terms and now this is what the terms have to be? Is that the art of the deal? Lying, deceiving, confabulating? I would think Satan could do better.
Well, every day it's a deal is close, and the next day, well, it's not close, it's close and not close. Rubio says today it's close. So I don't think it's close at all. I think they both dug in their heels, and neither one of them's going to budge on their key issues.
No,
right now, anyway.
I think that there was a time where Iran could be negotiated with pursuant to its uranium-235 enrichment. The AOPCA was a reasonable attempt to doing that for a number of years, where it did not roll back much, but it attempted to keep Iranian enrichment at 3 to 5%, which is what you could use for a nuclear power plant. Not recognizing, of course, that a country that floats on oil has no use for a nuclear power plant because all the nukes do is boil water, and you have so much oil and gas, it would be absurd to have a nuclear power plant for that. And they could buy fuel, anywhere in the world. They didn't have to go and mine it and refine it. So, obviously, the agreement that was negotiated by the 5 countries had really no value because it was pretending that there was a civilian potential use for the Iranian nuclear program. And there never was. And people that talked about that, even today, you have so many saying, Iran never intended to build a bomb. It's just flat out not true. But the fact that Iran has its own uranium extraction industry, very sophisticated industry, all automated, rather than open mines, they've gone and done it in mines that are way beneath mountains, so they're impervious to U.S. or Israeli bombardment. So they have a ready supply of uranium, and they now have some 40 or 50 sites all buried beneath the reach of America's MOABs and deep penetrators, filled with centrifuges. And one of the things that most people don't know is that Iran was originally on an embargo because of the Iranian enrichment. And it's kind of an odd thing because there is no rules against somebody refining uranium. It's only signatories can't build bombs to the UN signatory non-nuclear proliferation agreement, but Iran hadn't built a bomb, so they weren't in violation of it. But still, the United States decided to sanction them, and they were really clever. I don't know if you guys have watched that video. It's a long video, but it's on how the Iranians came to possess the original centrifuges, and it happened to be a Pakistani that was working in the Netherlands on top secret projects on centrifuges, because you have to, uranium comes out of the ground at typically 238. It's not fissionable. And so it's only about 0.75% that is uranium 235. And so you have to figure out a way to enrich the uranium to a high percentage of 235 to make it fissionable. And centrifuges, things that spin very quickly, are ways to do that. And this fellow was able to copy the Western designs, and he was able to reverse engineer them in Pakistan with Saudi Arabian money. And that's how the Pakistanis developed their nuclear program. That's how they enriched the uranium. The bomb making part is actually very easy, because all you really need is a centrifugal charge. If you can make tritium, heavy water, then the charge will be more prolific, more controlled, and you'll get more bang for your uranium if you have access to tritium. And the tritium triggers has a very short half-life, though, which means that even if you go that route, you have to renew them on a regular basis. The tritium won't just sit around. That's why they say that most of Americans and Russia's nuclear bombs are probably duds now, because they haven't replaced the tritium. And in America, we don't even have tritium manufacturing anymore. So, most of America's bombs would be duds. But that whole process was begun. That we were very crude centrifuges, but they worked. And they had them in very few places. And then they learned that that the atomic energy inspectors were spies from Israel, the CIA, and MI6. They stopped trusting them, and they start building all manner of centrifuge facilities deep underground. And I'm in a room here that's probably 12 feet by 30 feet, 12, something of that nature. You could put an entire array of centrifuges here that would be enough, even powered by a Prius motor, hybrid motor. And you could take that over 1,000 pounds of uranium, 60% enriched uranium that Iranians have, and in a bunker underground the size of this room, with the centrifuges they have, in a week's time, you could convert all of your uranium to make bombs. And I mean, it's just really nothing to it once you get to the level they are at. And Persians are smart. They no longer are reverse engineering Western centrifuges, and they no longer have the few at the known sites. They have some 50 buried sites, and
Wow.
they're manufacturing their own centrifuges, and they replace the metals that they can't get with carbon fibers. And there is no way. First, no one has a clue as to how much uranium-235 they have, and no one has a clue as to what extent they have enriched it, other than it was reported almost 2 years ago that they had 450 kilograms, a little over 1,100 pounds, of uranium-235 at or above 60% fissile purity. And that might sound like, well, it's 60%. You still got 40% to go. No, you don't. 87% is actually the threshold. And it takes about 90% of the energy to get the uranium from its natural state at 0.75% to 20%. About 90% of the energy. By the time you get it to there, it's a pretty easy task to get it to 60. And by the time you get it to 60, you're well over 90% of the way there. There's not much that's needed to finish the job.
Yeah, and it's not like that Iran can say that they lost their uranium in a boating accident, because the whole point of having it is so that people know that they have the bomb, right?
Right. I mean, having the ability to produce a bomb makes a nation defensible. You look what happened with North Korea. It doesn't matter what North Korea does or said. There is no way that we or anyone is going to go and attack North Korea, because they'd retaliate with nukes. And so that's essentially what it does, unless the person attacking you is just stupid, as in the case of the Ukrainian war against Russia. Yeah. So they wanted to be able to have one if they needed one for their survival. And so they did everything in terms of the missiles, in terms of the uranium, to take it up to bomb quality without actually building the bomb, because you can't use a nuclear bomb if you want to survive. So it's catch-22 kind of thing. That's what Israel, I don't think, has taken into consideration, or what United States has taken into consideration. At any time over the last 15 years, if Iran's intent were to have 20 nuclear bombs, they could have done it at any time. They had the manufacturing facility, the manufacturing know-how, they had the missiles to deliver it, they had the uranium to do it. It would have, at any time, it would have taken them a week to finish constructing some 20 bombs. But they didn't do it. So you have to say, why didn't they do it? And what can we do that would encourage them not to do it? Or does it even matter whether or not they do it?
Yeah.
And I would go so far as to say it doesn't matter whether or not they do it. Because the only thing that you lose when they have one is you can't go and attack them. But wouldn't that have been a better solution than what Israel and America did?
Apparently.
By attacking them, getting the Strait of Hormuz closed, causing all manner of havoc to the world, and having no way out of the war, losing all your bases in the Middle East. You would have thought that would have been, that's a much worse alternative, is not being able to attack them. Because one of the things the Iranians have proven is they're not stupid. You know, this guy here, Dunderhead, the narcissist in chief, the tyrannical ruler of the state with a flag, MBS. Now, he's a stupid piece of crap. But the Iranians are not. They're Persians. They're really not stupid. And look at their drone technology. Look at their missile technology. Look how they have taken a blow from the United States and they just dusted themselves off and said, okay, it wasn't fun, but you didn't do any damage to us. And so they're smart enough to know that they can't use a nuclear bomb, and that it would be unbelievably stupid for them to do so, and they're not going to do so. So the whole thing that Netanyahu has been crying about for the last 20 years is a waste of energy. Yes, they had the uranium to do it. Yes, they had the know-how to do it. They didn't do it, did they?
Right.
And
Well,
so, go ahead.
Well, in a rational world, deterrence works. It's shown to work over the last, 50 years or so. But when you get into the point where the world becomes less rational and the players become more, psychotic, for lack of a better word, the rules kind of change a little bit. You can make a big bomb, you can make a little bomb. You can make a tactical nuke, you can make a thermonuclear nuke. So, at what point does the non-rational thought weigh into the equation?
Okay, I think that's a good question. Let me just tell you why. First of all, I think in a general sense, we would never have seen Iran use a nuclear bomb, and then we can talk about tactical nukes, which are way outside of the Iranian capability at this point. Iran does not want to destroy Israel. They simply want to kill Jews. They want to control Israel, not destroy Israel. For Islam, for lots of stupid reasons, Israel, Jerusalem is considered their third holiest site. And of course, it's because of Muhammad's having the dream of having a wild ass ride to Jerusalem from Kaabaville one night because he was laughed out of town for the satanic verses and he needed an excuse. So he imagined that he rode there on a flying donkey. And the whole story around it is ludicrous, but it's a place that Muslims don't want to destroy. They don't want to destroy Mecca. I mean, here's you got Iran against Saudi Arabia in this war, but they don't want to destroy Mecca. They don't want to destroy Medina. They're too important to Islam. So I don't think that that the Iranians want to destroy it. I think they want to just kill Jews because that's what the Quran orders them to do. The second issue is they really are too close. And the nuclear blowback, particularly with the winds going from west to east, would be pretty negative if they used a bomb in Israel. So I don't think that's something they'd want to be exposed to. And then you have the other issue is that there are more Muslims in Israel than there are Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And the bomb would kill them indiscriminately. And then you have the other issue is that Iran is very concerned about their public image, exceedingly so. I've never seen a country work so hard during a war to play, we're the victim here. We are not escalating. We only respond to provocation. And you use a nuclear bomb, you are the pariah of the world, and no one is, even the Chinese and the Russians aren't going to want to do business with you. You become the pariah of the world. And so that's not a particularly good situation. And then there's another issue, which is that the Saudi Arabians are funding Pakistan. They not only funded the Pakistani development of nuclear weapons with a quid pro quo that they get to have nuclear weapons, having funded them, but the Pakistanis and the Saudi Arabians have signed defense agreements. An attack on one is an attack on the other. And so you bomb Saudi Arabia and you get nuked. That's something that the Iranians definitely don't want. All right, so that's the reason I think the Iranians never finished their bomb, and I think that's the reason they never deployed their bomb, and I think they could have been largely ignored in terms of their nuclear desires. It is true that two things have to be considered. The U.S., China, U.S., Russian, particularly the U.S.-Russian standoff, is based upon MAD, mutually assured self-destruction. MAD is no longer holding between Russia and the United States. And that's largely because the President of the United States is mad. And so that there's no rules anymore. There's no treaties. There's no agreements. It's we're in the Wild West days of nuclear proliferation now. And then you have the problem of the whole Ukrainian war was unbelievably stupid because there was no way to prevail. The U.S. started the war with regime change in Iran for the express purpose of breaking Russia into pieces so they could steal the natural resource. Same reason we're in Iran, same reason we went into Venezuela, was to steal the natural resources. So the problem with that is that Russia is not a patsy. And I don't know what part of World War II is necessary to reinforce that point. Well, the Russians, they lost 25 million men to win that war.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing the Russians can't endure to prevail in a war. And so to think that you're going to have a conventional war through a proxy and that you can give the Ukrainians enough weapons to beat down the Russians into capitulation is to say I've got my head in the mud and I have no clue as to their national psyche. Because you have a 0% possibility of pulling that off. And then what happens if you were to push them to the point that you either bankrupted their economy or overwhelmed them with Western weapons, and you put them in a corner? What are they going to do?
Yeah, they're going to fight back. They're going to nuke. What do they
They're
have
going
to
to nuke
lose?
you. That is what they're going to happen. And now that you've got Russia, Europe, not only making the weapons that are being deployed inside of Russia, but providing the guidance on those weapons and also providing the manpower to fire those weapons. And that's happening in France, Germany, and in the UK. Russia has to strike back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Russia is
Yeah.
going to be destroyed if it doesn't strike back
It's just
at
a matter
Europe.
of time.
So MAD no longer applies in Europe. I don't think MAD applies with Israel. I think Israel. Go ahead.
I know in the Russia-Ukraine situation,
Mhm.
Ukraine's been pretty smart on how they're using their drones and artillery and missiles and stuff. They're actually going after Russia's oil assets, the oil wells, the refinery plants, the pipelines, the vessels at sea. They're systematically dismantling it. And if they're able to come to a day where Russia can't pump oil, that's going to be a game changer, a real game changer.
Except for the fact that most of the targeting is coming from the West,
Yes.
and that most of the effective missiles that are being fired are coming from the West. And at this point, the damage to Russia's infrastructure has been a significant irritant. They're able to restore it and replace it fairly swiftly, and they're distributed well across their country. But it's pissing them off big time now.
Yeah.
And it's pissing them off mainly because it's not really coming from the Ukraine, coming from Europe. And so the Russians are really right on the cusp now of going to war against Europe.
That's correct.
That's the game changer. The game changer isn't what Ukraine is doing to Russia. It's what Europe is doing through the Ukraine to Russia, and that Russia has no choice now but to take it to the Germans, who have announced they're going to war with Russia. The UK has announced they're going to war with Russia. The French have. Russia cannot sit back and be a patsy, and therefore Russia must attack Europe. Now that's a game changer. Whether they go nuclear, I don't think there's a prayer that Russia will start taking out Europe, who has no air defenses and missile defenses. I don't think they'll start with the nukes. I don't think Russia.
No.
I think Russia is committed to their doctrine, which is no first strike.
Right.
But their kinetic tools, their conventional weapons, which are unconventional now in their speed and their maneuverability, Europe doesn't have a defense for them. And what happens to a country when it's laid defenseless? They do stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
And Europe's rage in this situation, I think, is insane. So I think you have a significant chance of nuclear proliferation happening because of the stupidity of Europe against Russia through Ukraine. I think the United States has largely removed itself from this equation. Now it's a Russia v. Europe, Russia v. NATO war, and the U.S. is a non-player now in NATO and in Europe. But Europe's going to have another world war. I think that's highly likely. And it'd be a miracle if that war didn't go nuclear. I think it will go nuclear. Now, as it relates to Israel, which was the next point, I don't see Israel doing anything that's sane. I think Israel's response to the Muslims on 10/7 by destroying Gaza was insane, counterproductive. By thinking they could go to war and wipe out Hamas, that was insane. Didn't work. Obviously, it wasn't going to work. It was insane. Continuing to send men into Lebanon. It's like the Vietnam Hamburger Hill. We're going to go climb that hill again, then we're going to retreat, and then we're going to climb that hill again, then we're going to retreat. They can't stay in Lebanon, and they can't go in and constantly retreat. This is insane. to continually provoke Turkey vis-a-vis Syria with, it's Russian or Israeli troops are positioned now inside of Syria, and they've done all sorts of bombardments of Syria. It puts you in a really bad position because Turkey's got a military that's bigger, probably more powerful than Israel's. They haven't had to fight Turkey in one of these wars yet, but they're really close. Turkey has actually declared war on Israel now several times recently. I just don't, and when Israel depended on the United States to go back and attack Iran a second time, somebody just wasn't thinking. So I think Israel is insane because there was no chance Israel was going to prevail and make things better in Iran. There's none. They weren't going to get regime change. They weren't going to get surrender. They were not going to eliminate their nuclear program. It's too well buried and too well distributed. And so all they did is make a bad situation worse. So if you've got that kind of thinking in Israel, and they do have nuclear weapons, when it comes to the whole world coming against Israel, they're absolutely capable of using them in the first strike. So I think they're dangerous.
Yeah, striking him a second time. I mean, here we had a deal, right? We have a deal, pieces right around the corner. We have a deal, and they go in under self-defense strikes. What was that all about? I mean, does that make sense to anybody?
A self-defense offense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The United States is the most recent attack where they came out and said we had a self-defense. No, they weren't. There was nothing about the last two attacks that were self-defense. As a matter of fact, even the blowing up of the UAE refinery, that was a U.S. missile that they just panicked. They blew up not Iranian vessels, but civilian vessels. They just thought everything was coming to get them, and they were the ones that misfired the missiles. We just flat out panicked. We can't pull it off. Now, I just want to finish your point, though, Roger, in terms of the mindset of Matt. I've told you that I think that the President of the United States is mad, so it won't work with the United States. I've told you that what Europe is doing right now vis-a-vis Ukraine and Russia is insane, and so they can't be counted on to prevent mutually assured destruction. I think Putin is actually very cautious. He is absolutely shown that he can be counted on not to do something insane. The question is, when is he going to act? When is he going to act like a man and stop just taking it on the chin because he's trying to be the adult in the room? We have seen over the last 20 years that the Iranians have not been insane. And we have seen over the last 20 years that the Israelis have been insane. So now you're dealing with the fact that in Islam, sanity is not a virtue. When you have a religion where your God tells you to fight to the death against all non-Muslims, there isn't a whole lot of moderation there. So then you have to wonder, all right, would the Iranians use a nuclear bomb because wiping out Israel is part of their Quran? And I say no again, because that's not the Quranic style. That's not the Mohammedan style. You're supposed to go there, pound your chest, scream Allahu Akbar, and terrorize your enemy while risking your own life. That's what you're supposed to do. It's what happened on 10/7. It's what's going to happen in Alaska Flood 2.0, the way it's described through the prophets. It's millions of men marching into Israel, each individual getting their jihadi points. Stacking up the virgins in paradise. This is their mentality. It isn't a nuclear bomb. That's why there was a fatwa against it. Now, there's no longer a fatwa against it, and I think that the likelihood that the Iranians either already have or will soon have a nuclear bomb is exceedingly high. I think this whole war was counterproductive. So now,
I'd be surprised if they didn't have one by now.
I'd be shocked if they didn't have one by now. Yeah. I think that it's one of the reasons why the Iranians can talk about releasing a certain amount of, even though they've said they're not going to do it, but they are in a position where they could release a certain amount of uranium-235 to the Russians for conversion into back into 3 to 5% for power plants, which is what the Russians have promised to do, and they've done it in the past. They can be trusted to do that, but they can do that now because I think they've already made their bombs. It would be foolish for them not to do it. And one thing we have seen is they're not foolish. They have played this war brilliantly. And really, the Iranians have played this war brilliantly. And it hurts me to say that because I'm opposed to the Islamic theocracy. But they have.
Yeah.
And so now you've got Trump. He comes up, he's desperate to end this war that he started. It's unpopular. And he's now, I'm sure, convinced that all he's got is bluff. He loves to bluff. I'm going to wipe him out. I'm going to bomb him back into the Stone Age. You can do this the easy way or the hard way. No one believes him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Gulf states have all said, if you attack Iran again, we're done.
Yeah.
And they've had to say that because they have actually been the brunt of what the Iranians have done. The Iranians have been really, really smart. Rather than sending most of their missiles into Israel, they've sent most of their missiles into the American bases and American facilities and the fiefdoms with dictators. These are, if America were to attack or Israel were to attack Iran again, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, they'd be done.
Yep.
And they know they'll be done. And so they're the ones telling Trump, you cannot do this. No, you sit down and shut up. No, you are not going to attack Iran again. And so Trump's insane. So I'm not saying he won't do it. I'm going to tell you that his military has told him he cannot do it, that it's a war crime and there's nothing to be gained. I know his military has told him he cannot invade. I know his military has told him he cannot go in and capture Captain Uranium. That doesn't mean he won't do it because he's insane and he doesn't listen to anybody. And he's Satan, so he's diabolical. But his military has told him he can't do it. His intelligence community has told him he can't do it. And the Gulf fiefdoms have all said, you do this, we're done. And so he only has his bluster. Now, I started a war, I can't finish it. And I can't win it. And yet I've told everybody I won it. So all he can do now is try to negotiate a way out. And the Iranians aren't giving him that option.
Yeah. Well, and nobody else is either, because I mean, he wants to have the deal, and then okay, the rest of you Arab nations go ahead and sign the Abraham Accords, and they want no part of that. That Saudi doesn't.
Well, that's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that there is a fundamental difference between this piece of crap right here with his little headscarf, the diabolical egomaniac and murderous one. You have to know that there's a very different mindset in the elitists that are sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars. And the average bum in those countries, and I'll say bum in those countries, because nobody works. The reason they can't defend themselves is nobody has a work ethic. They've created countries where if you are a citizen, you get oodles of money from gas and oil, and you don't work. And people who do not work are bums. It is devastating to one's character. And of course, Islam is devastating to one's soul. And so they're not just bums, but they're bums that would willingly do whatever was necessary to obliterate Israel. And they hate Israel because their lives are really unhappy. Even with all of the scummy wealth that they have, there's nothing that's going to resolve the fact that they're Muslims. And so they have to have someone to blame. That was Allah's whole thing. Okay, life for you is really bad. You're really stupid. But those other guys, you got to go kill them there, because they're the reason that your lives are bad. They did this to you. They boogeyman. That's why we keep on blaming Russia and China. Dictatorial leaders need boogeymen to get people to cower and to control them. And so they're all told that their boogeyman is Israel, that all their misery is because of Israel, not because of Muhammad and Allah. And so you've got a real pickle here. They know that if they were to normalize relationships with Israel, that the people within their country would kill them.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't just say, we want a different government. They'd kill them. And they know it. And they've said it openly. If they approve and demand, as Saudi Arabia did within hours of the time that Trump had his mandatory recommendation, and said, no, we're not doing that unless there's the creation of a Palestinian state. They don't want that either.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know the mindset of the Muslims in Gaza and in the West Bank. They've all been through that. Kuwait had to throw hundreds of thousands of them out. Jordan's been at war with them for years. Egypt threw them out. That's why they have the big wall there. They know them. They know that their own people are parasites, but their own people are non-vicious parasites. They're not rapey. They're not into slave trade. They're not into mass murder. They're not into torture. The parasites in Gaza and the West Bank, they are. And they know it. Yeah. And that they know that if they approve a state for them, while it would be great for their internal esprit de corps, we got Israel now, they know that they will not live peacefully with Israel, that they will continue to agitate until there is a catastrophic war. Mm-hmm. That's their mindset. So it's a catastrophic war that grows up in their midst that they can't stop. And it'll be just like Osama bin Laden turning on his own family and the leadership in Saudi Arabia, saying, you're not Muslim enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen out of a Fakistanian state. And they know it. It'll blow up, and it's certain death to them if one is established. They know the mindset. And if one isn't established, then this war doesn't end. And the Iranians destroy them. They've been put in an impossible position. And this is when you have people put in desperate positions where there is no way to win, they do really insane things. And that's where we find ourselves. When Trump upped the ante and demanded, it's, because what he originally says, okay, we'll pay you a bunch of money, some $25 billion is the new number, and you open the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians said, okay, yeah, we can do that. No, that's fair enough deal. You stop the war in Lebanon. You remove your troops from the Middle East, and we'll take $25 billion. It's our money, but we'll take the $25 billion and open the Strait of Hormuz. That's a fine deal. Okay. And there you go. So Trump could declare victory. He could have walked away, and the Strait of Hormuz would have been open, and all it would have cost him is he didn't get a victory, and the United States would have released $25 billion. And he looks like an idiot because he constantly rails on Obama for releasing a bunch of money and getting a weak deal. And he would have gotten no deal because uranium wasn't even mentioned in that deal.
Yeah, that is 100% the key issue right there is he is going to look bad. And so he tries to throw on, hey, at least my Abraham Accords came through. Look, peacemaker, peacemaker. And
Yeah.
his ego is what blows up any semblance of an open Strait of
Well,
Hormuz.
when the warmongers in his MAGA group said, "Wait a minute, you can't let Iran have any nuclear capability. It's all got to be destroyed." So it's not just you're not going to refine anymore. No, it's all destroyed. We come and get it. We destroy it. We take it. You give it to us. It has gone back to that rhetoric of which there is a 0% chance that's going to happen. Zero. I mean, you don't even say it unless you're just trying to piss people off. But that's where he is now. Now he has thrown that monkey wrench back in and saying there'll be no release of money unless that happens, which means the Strait of Hormuz isn't going to be open. The Strait of Hormuz doesn't open. When we continue like this, the entire world's economy is going to crash. That won't be good for the midterms, will it?
Oh,
Well,
the midterms that aren't going to happen.
Yeah. So, the Abraham Accords were thrown in because he thought that if he gave Israel some kind of a plum, I guess maybe he could control them, or that, yes, look at me, I'm the great peacemaker. Forget about this nuclear thing. We now have the Abraham Accords. That's better. But the only way to get that is to carve the heart out of Israel and create a Fakistanian state. And the moment you've done that, Israel is indefensible. And the next Alaska flood is not only on, it's going to be vastly more devastating. It's not going to be 1,200 Israelis that are killed in a day. It's going to be at least 1.2 million. 1,000 times worse. So world's in quite a pickle, isn't it, man? We talk about the time of Israel's troubles that started on Shabuah. Oh, man. Did you ever think it would be this horrific this quickly? I mean, this is hard to imagine things going that south. I mean,
well, the Rahab works fast.
Guy, what's the answer to this?
The Rahab works pretty fast, it looks like. You see it coming. The translations are just playing out right before our eyes. It's just so obvious to see now with a clearer vision, with the proper words. It's been translated. But Rahab figures very prominently in this equation, and he is setting the stage for it. He may not realize he is, but he is. And he might realize he is. Over the next few years, it's going to be very interesting how this plays out, and quite tragic too, as we go down the road.
Yeah, I think that it's obviously it's going to be tragic. The prophets talk about it being tragic, but I think Israel has put themselves in a position where there is no hope for the nation of Israel, and I guess that's where God says they need to be if they're ever going to come back home, in a position of no hope. But that is really where they are. And, can you imagine being in Israel right now? Your only ally. You started a war with Iran thinking you were going to be playing with the United States, the biggest military in the world, and you're going to be partners, and you get abandoned. And Trump has definitely abandoned Israel. His negotiation with the Muslims. And he just picked up the phone to inform Netanyahu. And the Israelis know it. And the Israelis know that the deal that he formed did not include a mediation of their nuclear capability. And by the way, now that is never going to happen. So, I mean, I pretty clever at this point. You'd have to be pretty clever, but I don't think there is a move that Trump can make or that Netanyahu can make that resolves this problem. And I know there's no move that MBS can make. The dictators of the Sunni Arab fiefdoms, they're in real panic mode. I mean, they're on the cusp of annihilation. and there's nothing they can do about it because they don't have anybody that can defend them.
Yeah, the economics of it is uncomfortable for them, but the losing water in the desert, losing air conditioning in the desert, that is end of civilization stuff for them. Yeah.
Yes. Well, just the absolute demonstration that their leadership was foolish to partner with the United States to defend them. When and now they're at war with fellow Muslims, and they've got a United States that turned out to be a traitor. So they put their fate of their country in with a Christian country that betrayed them, and now you explain that to the rank and file of Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or any of these other places, and the money that they were
Wahhabi,
the money they were distributing to keep the peace amongst the natives, they don't have it anymore.
Mhm.
They've gone through their reserves. They don't have it anymore.
Iran just recently, it may have been in the last day or two, put out a call to the Gulf states saying, you have to, the United States can't protect you anymore. They've destroyed all the U.S. bases there. They can't protect you. It's time to come home to Islam. It's time to form an Islamic alliance. And it's time to move forward with that. And so that might be the direction they head in.
They're talking about an Islamic NATO. Of course, the difficulty is that the Shias hate the Sunnis, and they've been at war with each other for 1,400 years. So that does make it difficult. They don't trust each other. Look, Iraq was at war with Iran for years. So they're definitely not going to trust each other, and they know that the Persians are much smarter than they are, and they know that Iran ultimately controls the Strait of Hormuz, and so it has them. So I would agree. If I were in their shoes, I would disown the U.S. But the problem with that is all of these idiots here, like MBS, all they are is sitting on top of large piles of black ooze that they have been selling in dollars under a system where the United States would protect them, and they would bank lots of money without having to do anything. And they're all in that boat. I mean, all of the labor, everything that gets built in those countries is by slave labor. And so they got nothing. They tried this at the end. They said, well, we'll diversify. You get Abu Dhabi and several places that have tourist destinations, but those tourist destinations are gone now. Their value is destroyed. So what do you have? And can you imagine a worse place to build a tourist destination where the temperatures go from hellish to abominable?
Oh, it's not the temperatures. It's the people. I mean, I don't care how nice they try to sell Emirates. I don't care how nice they try to sell Abu Dhabi, or Dubai, right? Beautiful, beautiful. They made their own islands, supposed to be a resort in absolute paradise. It has nothing to do with that. It's the people, man. You couldn't pay me to set foot in that stuff.
No, I am not going there. That is for darn sure.
Just ask all the people that lost their passports in Dubai.
Oh my God! Yeah, you go in as a Westerner, and they'll take your passport, and you were a slave. So you can't complain. There's no reasonable legal system, and they're going broke, and properties have tumbled in price. I just think that the United States and Israel made such a horrific calculation of going to war a second time with Iran, and what they ended up with is the utter destruction of that region. And and when people have nothing to live for anymore, they do really bad stuff.
Yeah, a quartered animal, man. I tell you, yeah.
Oh yeah. Here's he wrote this a week ago, but imagine voting for somebody that would write this. If Iran surrenders, admits their navy is gone, First of all, why would Iran surrender? They've won the war.
Mhm.
They won the war of public opinion. They won the war in the region. If you look at military assets, they have been far more effective, and America has done nothing to them. And they've brought they have the world in the palm of their hand. And so if Iran's ascent, there is nothing you could do to get Iran to surrender. You could drop 30 nukes on Iran and they wouldn't surrender.
Yeah, just vote for him. This has his rhetoric, his style, his attack, his demean has proliferated throughout the Republican
Narcissist.
Party.
Yeah. So if Iran surrenders, admits that their navy is gone, their navy is not gone. Their navy is comprised of fast boats that protect the Strait of Hormuz that are under ground. They're in caves and they launch them out of caves. We may be having a problem with our little camera here in terms of its focus, Rich. But they had tens of thousands of them, and my guess is they haven't even lost 100 of them. And that is their navy. They are manned and unmanned. They fire missiles. They lay mines. That is their navy, and that is not been affected, not even 5%. Resting at the bottom of the sea. That is absolutely out of touch with reality. Their Air Force is no longer with us. Actually, the United States lost 50 very, very expensive planes, billions of dollars worth of aircraft.
Wow.
The Iranians haven't lost their Air Force. The Iranians recognized that building a manned Air Force was not in their interest. What little they have in bunkers underground. But it was never something that they pursued. They put all of their money in drones, which is what any smart country would do, and in missiles. And the drones and the missiles launchers and manufacturing facilities haven't been touched. So there is no damage to the Iranian Air Force, and yet the U.S. Air Force has taken it on the chin. We've lost 50 planes, and some of those planes super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So the opposite of what he's saying is true. And if their entire military walks out of Tehran, weapons dropped and hands in the air, each shouting, "I surrender, I surrender."
To who?
Well, it's like saying that you don't understand the way that Iran is designed militarily. The People's Militia is the largest contingent. They have like 20 million people they can actually arm, and that have been trained to fight as part of a civilian militia. They're all over the country. And the Quds Force is the very top of what they have. A Quds Force, very loyal to Muhammad and the Quran, knows that the Quran says that a Muslim can never surrender, that a Muslim that surrenders has to be tortured in the highest places in hell. So you just don't know anything about Islam. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they're not the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Mm-hmm.
They report to Allah and Muhammad, and they will never surrender. They would rather be killed than surrender. And there are millions of them. You aren't going to affect them. They were never going to surrender. There's nothing you could do that would cause them to surrender. You could have them outgunned 1,000 to 1, and they're going to charge at you.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know the mindset of these people.
Well, this is a propaganda rag put out by somebody. It's playing to the MAGA base, the military base, patriotic base, Christian base, to make it appear like Trump did something over there and a good for them. We won. But it's all lies. But
It is.
here in the States, the news media itself is all mostly tied to Trump, and they're reporting the same stuff. Nobody's going over there to really check. But the truth is just the opposite of what this thing says.
And so he wants their leadership to sign documents of surrender.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he think he's back, on the battleship Missouri, and you're going to have the emperor come out and sign surrender documents?
That's
So
exactly
he can hang
what
them on the
wants.
wall.
You mean
He wants to hang them on the wall in the White
you
House
murdered the
around a
man's
gold
father.
frame.
You murdered his entire family. You disfigured him. And he, by the way, is Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. In fact, everybody in that government now has fought. They're all comrades. They're never going to sign any documents like this. This is just completely delusional. The China Street Journal, the failing New York Times, and the magnificent fighting forces of the United States of America that lost every war that the U.S. has engaged in. Every war since when we actually lost World War II, because if you look at the troops we sacrificed to prevail, that's a loss. I mean, you cannot look at what we did there and say that we prevailed. It was terrible, and it was the Russians that beat the Germans, and it was nukes that beat, and terrorist attacks, bombings on Japan that beat the Japanese, and look at the cost in American lives. It was terrible. We lost in Korea, we lost in Vietnam, we lost in Afghanistan, we lost in Iraq, we lost in Libya, we're losing in Ukraine, we lost in Iran, we lost in Syria. What is he talking about? Brilliant victory, masterful, the fake news media. And this is the writing of an insane man.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, he is insane. Well, yes, he's demon possessed. That's all true, but Satan is more clever than this. This is just pure insanity, and it's astonishing that you have a president running a country with tweets, tweets and executive orders.
Goebbels
And
could
you
have
have-
written that. Yeah.
Pardon?
Goebbels could have written that.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so Iran, America is claiming that, and we're talking a lot about this war because this war is the catalyst for the time of Israel's troubles. It's obvious. Yahweh said through both Yoel and Yeshaya that it's the Iranians that are going to send millions of troops into Israel. And they're going to be devastating over the next 7 years. And so we know that it's the aftermath of this war that's going to be so devastating to Israel. And we know that Israel cannot defend itself against Iranian missiles and drones. Another few weeks and their entire stockpile of interceptors would be gone. And they're really not having very good success with the cluster missiles or the hypersonics or the worm swarms. And so they're in an exceedingly vulnerable position, and there's nothing they can do on the regime change, and nothing they can do on removing the uranium. So the war goals are not winnable, and they're isolated from the world and now isolated from America. So Iran's in a position where they're looking for provocation. They want America to invade. They want provocation. That's why when America gave it to them, they're now saying, well, that was America's violation. We're prepared to respond. Typically, the Iranians have not been bluster.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, they do respond. We'll see.
This goes back to the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, this is it just shows so much ignorance. The ninth surah of the Quran was written, and it begins, any treaty between a Muslim and non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim, which means that you can't do a deal with an Islamic country. That's what that means. It says if you do a deal with an Islamic country, they're going to cheat on you. And so all it does is give you a false sense of security. Don't do it. But the reason that the Quran says that a treaty between Muslims and non-Muslims is not binding on the Muslim is because Muhammad sacrificed everything, his honor, his claim to be a messenger of Allah, Allah himself, all of it, when he signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, where it says that Allah's not a god and that Muhammad's not a messenger of a god. Muhammad never claimed to be a prophet. He knew better.
Mhm.
That's retroactive. And what they said is that the Muslims won't terrorize, kidnap, enslave, rob anyone for 10 years that is associated with their own clan in Kaabaville. And like most mercenaries aren't mercenaries because they enjoy the wide open spaces and camping out with their buds. They're mercenaries because they like babes and booty.
Mm-hmm.
And so Muhammad didn't give it to him. He was afraid that if he entered the Kaabaville, which I call Kaabaville because it wasn't Mecca, it was Petra, with insufficient arms, they would mock him like they did the last time he was there, which is why he had to go to Yathrib. And so he was scared that he couldn't go there without being mocked out of existence again. And so he left, and when he left, his militants gave him the stink eye and were very close to turning on him, according to the Hadith. And so Muhammad did what all despots do. He provided his mercenaries with easy prey, and there was only one other defenseless Jewish community in Arabia that he hadn't attacked and bludgeoned. It was at Kabar. And so he turned his attention on Kabar, and that's when Allahu Akbar became the prayer of fear. And that was the model for Alaska flood on attacking farming communities early in the morning, with then doing the exact same thing: torture, rape, human trafficking, mass murder. So if you don't know those things, you really ought not be in a position where you're trying to influence future events. Mm-hmm. You ought not be trying to arrange a deal between these countries. And let's just be frank. What incentive would Turkey have to join the Abraham Accords? What incentive would Egypt have to do it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They
literally nothing. I mean, and so just to say it says you don't understand the dynamics of the region. It is pure insanity. And with it, the only thing that the rhetoric turns to is the forfeiture of the heart of Israel and giving up a Islamic state of terrorism, mm-hmm. which is the final solution. So this is really exceedingly dangerous turf that we're on. And it all happened on the weekend of Shabu as we entered the time of trouble. I mean, you imagine Pakistan. You think Pakistan is going to sign an agreement with Israel in a war when Israel went and attacked for the second time Iran, when Israel is bombing Lebanon? And you think that they're going to, and Israel is the great enemy of the Muslim, according to the Quran, and you think that they're going to do a deal with Israel? Come on.
Mm-hmm. No. And as always, death to Israel, death to America. I mean, what? That's all they got.
Listen,
yeah.
Well, that is all they've got. At this point, America is worse than they are.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So now what?
They're
it's a devil on both sides. Oh boy. The word of God, it's sharper than a double-edged sword. Hebrews 4:2. By the way, was Hebrews written in Hebrew? And it reads like
bit of
every one
trivia.
of Paul's letters. It's obvious that Paul wrote it, or if Paul didn't write it, then one of his attachés wrote it. I can assure you that you will not find Yahweh or a word from Yahweh in Hebrews 4:2 or otherwise, 4:12 or otherwise, or any place in the Christian New Testament. There is no Yahweh cited in the Christian New Testament.
No.
Ever. So just be aware. If you are a Christian, your New Testament was inspired by Satan, not by Yahweh. And the guy that created it admits as much, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Admits that his ego was so out of control that the only way that Satan could keep him in check was to demon possess him. That's the word of God to you, then you probably should vote for, a rapist and pedophile who is a narcissist and warmonger, and see how that works out for you.
Yeah.
A thorn to control them. Yeah, written, mostly in Greeks, inspired by Rome. Carried forward with Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm gonna write on behalf of those goyim that God says don't emulate their ways, and I'm going to change everything. I'm going to make it such that the Jews, those dastardly Jews, they killed my God. Oh my God, can you imagine that? Those dastardly Jews, they killed my God. So my God got mad at him, and he reneged on all of his promises to the Jews and gave them all to us. So now you have a lying God and a dead God. Mm-hmm. I'd choose, if I was going to create a God, I'd have one that's better than dead and liar. I mean, why would you ever believe the said God if he renounced all of his promises with his people? Why would you believe that any of his promises to you? Mm-hmm. And why would you follow a God that men can kill?
Yeah.
Why would you follow a God who is no bigger than a man?
And a baby.
Just stupid. Iran says, no deal if U.S. demands uranium handover. In other words, that wasn't part of the deal that they negotiated, was it? And now it's the Trump's additional deal, and Iran says, no, we didn't agree to that. And by the way, now under all the after everything we've gone through, there is no chance we would ever agree to that.
Yeah.
Well,
who's dictating terms now? Yeah, who's dictating terms now?
I was going to say it's been a turnaround. It's been a turnaround here. It looks like to me the leadership in Iran is in control, 100%. Trump's just reacting now to their leaders.
Yeah, and the leadership, and Trump wants to say that you have no leaders. That's what his last post said. You have no leaders. But the fact of the matter is that they actually are fairly organized government entity, and they have both elected and appointed leadership. They have a central committee that meets quite regularly, and they decide on what to do, and their foreign ministry carries out those instructions. And at this point, the most powerful influence in Iran is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's the primary force. And if you think you're going to negotiate with them, good luck. The foreign minister of Iran was headed to New York to be part of a presentation at the United Nations. He is the principal person you would have to negotiate with if you were to negotiate with Iran. So he was coming to New York. Do you think that the dumpster and his company said, oh, wow, we've got the lead Iranian foreign minister, Arachi, coming to New York to speak to the United Nations.
Didn't they threaten to arrest him?
Well, why would you arrest him? I mean, if you're going to arrest him going to the United Nations, you might as well blow up the United Nations, right?
Right.
At that
Absolutely.
Point, at that point, what do you got? and he happens to be one of the smartest Iranians. So if you're going to get rid of him, then who are you going to deal with? He's very polished, very schooled in his craft. Arachi is. But rather than say, why don't we capitalize on this and meet with him? Let's see if we can come up with something that works. The big dumpster himself can get on a plane and go to New York. You know what they did? They refused to give him a visa. You're the guy that is the most important person for you to negotiate with. Come into your country, and you refuse to give him a visa.
Yeah. Well, maybe Vance is getting lots of frequent flyer miles between here and Pakistan. I don't know. I see no upside in that for them. He's coming here. Absolutely. Why not?
And Pakistan is not a neutral party.
Did they turn him around at the airport, or did they deny the visa before he got on the plane over there?
Denied him a visa.
Yeah, that's a pretty big slap in the face.
Mm-hmm. What it says is the United Nations should not be in America.
Mm-hmm.
What it says is that the United Nations is not an independent body. What it says is that the Trump administration has no illusions of negotiating with Iran. That they know that they are so outclassed by Arachi that they don't have anybody that they can put up against him.
Yeah,
I will tell you that I wouldn't want to have to negotiate with him. I've listened to him speak. He is so far beyond. First of all, that's his skill set. You're playing into his wheelhouse, and when he comes to a meeting, he is exceedingly well supported by data and staff. And I don't know how you'd negotiate with the guy. I mean, you could, but you'd have to be prepared to genuinely want something that is mutually beneficial, or you're not going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Count your fingers, huh?
Yeah. No, he's not a count your fingers guy. No, I actually have esteem for him. I think he is
right.
I think he's a very bright. In fact, I know he's an extremely bright, articulate man who is. It's like Lavrov of Russia. Lavrov has got to be in the top 2 or 3 most skilled men in his craft in the world, and Arachi of Iran is in that same boat. And America doesn't have skilled diplomats anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think the United States has anybody that has the horsepower to go up against him.
Yeah.
So the big pooper, it's pretty amazing that we have Satan, Rahab, and the Pope, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, which is Babylon, and they're both Americans. When God lambasted America in the 18th chapter of Yeshaya, it's almost like he knew what he was talking about.
Right.
He has declared war on artificial intelligence. Now, you know that I'm no fan of artificial intelligence. I think it is disastrous for the world because of the fact that it is precluding people from thinking, because it has a popularity bias to be popular, to make money. So it will tell you what the majority are promoting as if the majority has ever been right, and the popularity bias is damaging. And because it's now running utility grids and war targeting and war campaigns, and it's integrated into the military, and it has no ethics and no morality, and on subjects that a person has a degree of expertise, they outthink the AI every which way because it really isn't intelligent. And it's also going to replace hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And particularly the kind of jobs that the Gen X and Z would consider doing, the AI is going to do it. And so it's stealing livelihoods, which are essential to humans for them to have a sense of worth. And it's robbing them of their thinking of them being reasonable and rational, which deprives them of their humanity. So I think it's a disaster. And it's blurred the lines between real and false in social media, where it acts as judge and jury, and it's very, very caustic. And so I think it's a disaster what it's done to X and to Facebook and to YouTube. And you have no retort against it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it promotes what it claims to despise. So, but the Roman Catholic Church has been at war with intelligence for 18 centuries.
I was waiting on that. That's
The horse is out of that barn. You're not putting AI back in the barn. It's out here.
No.
It's here to stay. So, it's I guess useful for some things, but deadly for
Yes.
others. I mean, you can get information there really quick about something, but
Mm-hmm.
it could also, terminate you pretty quick if it wanted to, I expect. So,
Yeah, AI has, if it was relegated to specific tasks and was not a universal problem, I think that AI has merit. Leia uses it marvelously in producing her songs, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of human input. And a song can take her 200 to 300 hours. It's so hard to work beyond the constraints of the AI, but we can do it. And the graphic team, most of the graphics are created via AI, and they're beautiful. And the story that you can tell when you work through AI like that is much better than we can do on a program like this. So I admire it for that. The Asciata, we went through a first iteration. It was horrible. The second iteration has been pretty good. It could be better, but it's pretty good. But you really have to be exceedingly restrictive as to what you will allow it to venture into, because the moment it returns to its comfort zone, which is its biases and popularity decrees, it becomes counterproductive. It is very good now for writing software, but it's very sloppy. So you can create marvelous enhancements to a website and capability of the website using AI, but you're going to be picking up the pieces for a long time because it's sloppy. And it will do things that are counterproductive behind your back, and you're constantly battling it. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. In that regard, it's been a disaster as it's been put over social media, controlling it. Disaster as it's put integrated into the military.
It's doing exactly what they want it to do. You don't implement Bernays and all these other psychological techniques by accident, and that's how X works and everything.
It's a control mechanism.
Yep.
And that's what Starlink is ultimately. It's a control mechanism, and they're going to use it to control people, and they're going to use it to rob people of their economic freedom and their liberties and their thinking. And it is Animal Farm. It's Brave New World. And it's a disaster on the bigger scope. But if you wanted to do a search, it does searches pretty well. I use it when I'm writing and I want to say, okay, what is the passage that talks about this subject? Or, what is the Hebrew spelling of this word? And, about 70-80% of the time, if you give it something like that, it comes up with something reasonably good, reasonably fast, and you can use it. But man, does it make tremendous mistakes.
It's
and
not
they're so common.
It's not putting the ain and the aleph in the right spot, is it? It's not like we can just flip a switch and have it go through. And
no, I can't use it for that because there's too much thinking that is involved. Like Perry loves AI, and his goal would be, I've said, I want some help getting these 3 books to most of them have a lot of the superscript already integrated into them. And I said, I like the rest of them done, but it's going to have to be a manual process, because if you try to use AI to do this, it is really going to screw it up, because there's words that are pronounced, transliterated the same way, but that are spelled differently, and they have very different meanings, and it's going to really screw it up if we try to automate the process. And it's tough to walk away from the fact that it can do in a matter of minutes what could take days to do. It just can't do it very well,
and weeks to undo. I mean,
Yeah,
to go back
undo.
and correct is it. I mean, if you even get that lucky, sometimes it just deletes everything. You know, we've seen cases where it's deleting Google Drives and data for companies and stuff for whatever reason. Yeah.
Yes.
So
It can do more damage in a heartbeat than any human can do. And so I just look at it as it's a mixed bag, and the bag is mostly bad because of the long-term implications of this, and the lack of a morality that is running it and controlling it, and how they'll make their money. And ultimately they have to do deals with governments and militaries to make money, utilities. And so the AI is going to be deciding where you're banking someplace. It'll decide whether or not you get to keep your money, where you get to spend your money. It will decide what internet access you have, and what you can view and what you can't view, and whether or not you're going to be free or not, whether or not you're going to live or die. They're not putting this horse back in the barn, as you said, Roger.
Yeah. Well, I know. Speaking of X, the video part of X, not the commentary side, but the video part where you punch on and you see all the videos come down. Most of those are AI generated.
Yes, they are.
think.
Yes, they are.
And they're just worthless videos. People getting in fights, and people going to
Yeah.
bars and getting drunk, and just all kinds of nasty stuff, and some very risque stuff coming up on there now. So I canceled my account and just walked away from it.
Yeah, when you always said, I want you to start talking to my people, and you realize the only way you can distribute those is in social media accounts. And we didn't have a website that was set up right to be able to accomplish this. And as you know, I went on X and took the 20,000 posts on X, which were all fairly intellectual, clever, generated like 2,200 followers, and of the 2,200 followers, probably half of them were bots and fakes of some sort. And I finally just gave up, because I looked at it, and X changed the feed so that what you were getting is what X thought you wanted, as opposed to the people you were following. You couldn't shape the information you were going to receive and respond to. And what I was getting in terms of the videos that were showing up, they were all fake. They were all racist, political, and fraudulent.
Yeah.
And so to see AI Jesus and keyboard jihadists and MAGA Messiah, and it was 90% of the posts that I was seeing on X that were repulsive. And I realized that there is no reason to ever post here again. And we do a live stream that shows up there. I haven't been on X in 4 months. And then you look at Facebook, and Facebook was for a while a decent environment, but the feed now on X, I block 2 out of every 3 videos and posts that are put in my feed on X's, which is the same thing. Both accounts are designed so that they feed you information, you get to respond to it. I block most of them, and yet I can't dent the amount of keyboard jihadi posts, or MAGA stupidity, or Christian stupidity, or Muslim stupidity. It is just a swamp of lies. And so much of it is just AI rubbish that is untrue. And yet, in both places, I'll be slapped and stymied for saying the post that they've sent me on the feed is untrue, and they'll blame me for it. And I said, so what in the world am I doing here? I haven't made a post on my own Facebook page in months. I don't even go there. And YouTube is essentially useless. I mean, the only thing we can use YouTube for is that it's a good place to put videos that can be archived and presented elsewhere. But if you say anything on YouTube that is important to say, they'll shut you down and you have no recourse. That's an environment where there is literally no way to communicate with anybody. You can't even authenticate your own account. It's really pathetic. It's terrible. And so and all of them have moved far right. They were all far left. They're all far right now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Figures.
Yeah, and AI is running them. To play on them is to say I'm gonna play in Satan's sandbox. I'm just not going to do that. That's why we needed to create the account where we could play videos. You have to have them stored on those accounts because of the enormous size of these videos. And then you have to have them streamed from those accounts because of their control over bandwidth and the expensive bandwidth, because it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars if we tried to do it ourselves. And but yet what we can do is create an environment where you can watch this video, you can comment on it, you can engage with one another as part of the Covenant family without ever leaving our site, even though it plays on a YouTube channel, but you don't even know it. So that was the only way that I thought we could continue to distribute the vlogs, is that way, and recognizing that we're going to have, because of now the transcripts and all of that searchable via a search engine, like Google or anything else you put into your browser. Those people who are genuinely interested in knowing who Yahweh is, what he has to say, understanding why Trump is so demonic, the demise of the United States, the demise of the world, the fact we're in the time of trouble, and that we want to know more about Israel and the covenant and the Torah and the like, they can find us. But yeah, you can't play on social media anymore, not unless you want to wallow with demons.
Yeah, you're in a swamp. Yeah,
you really aren't. It's unfair to swamps, but yeah, yeah. It's horrible. What else we have there, my friend? Is anything else worth commenting on? I'm game for a few more.
Okay.
Oh, the Board of Peace. We're gonna make
Board of Peace.
Yeah, we're gonna make Gaza into a resort. We're gonna build back Gaza better than ever. We're gonna export Gazans to Egypt and to Jordan, and I'm telling you, that's where they're gonna go. Yeah, I'll negotiate that. You don't worry about it. I've already worked it out.
He only had one donor to that, didn't he? I mean, wasn't Saudi or Qatar? Wasn't that their mechanism to dump a bunch of money to him? Then that was it.
To be on the Board of Peace, you had to contribute $1 billion, and even Putin said, "Okay, I'll be in it. Just take my money from the 300 billion that you confiscated from us, and you can take $1 billion from the money you confiscated from us and chip in." But yeah, evidently no one paid.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't think anybody showed up for that.
Yeah, no one ponied up the money. And let's just say that you had 20 players and you had $20 billion. They're all saying we're only going to play when Hamas disarms. Is Hamas disarming?
No.
So now what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean,
Mhm.
are you going to go into Gaza and rebuild it with Hamas still being armed? And
Only
you
if you're
can't
doing it
disarm.
underground.
No.
And you can't
If you're
disarm.
building
Well,
more
they're there.
tunnels.
They're there too. So
Mhm.
you can't disarm Hamas. We've learned that's impossible. And what do you think the odds are that in 7 years, even if you had 70 years, that you could rebuild Gaza?
No.
No,
No.
you can't
It-
rebuild Gaza. And if you were to say, all right, we'll go into the Sinai and we'll take the money that the Saudis no longer have and the Qataris no longer have because we started this stupid war, but we'll take 100 billion here and 100 billion there, and we'll go into Saudi Arabia, into the Sinai or into Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, 80% of the population lives in two little bands, and so 90% of the country is unpopulated. So you could take any place in Saudi Arabia too. And so we'll have, Saudi Fakistan and Sinai Fakistan and Jordan Fakistan. And you spend $50 billion creating Fakistans, emerald cities.
Hmm.
Do you think that Hamas is going to let the Muslims go and live there in peace?
Oh no.
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 So now what happens? You can build it; they won't come.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you build a spectacular city for people who are parasites?
Right.
Right.
They're
Who
not
will
going to
just
work.
tear it up. They will
Right.
tear it up to use what they can use to kill Jews.
Hey, they're in a desert. They dug up the water pipes that the Jews had built so they could make rockets. And then they claimed they didn't have any water. Then they, dug under their farmland and under their hospitals. And when Israel destroyed the tunnels, they said, "We got no more hospitals. We got no more." Well, no one's a farmer there anyway. They
Right.
it's nothing but a cauldron of parasites. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. This whole board of peace was a pile of nothing. And then
I
Trump
think
says,
it was
I
Sinwar's.
stopped the war. He didn't stop the war. The Israelis are bombing Gaza all the time,
Every day.
every day.
Who was the Gazan prince that walked away? He was early on when Israel was getting ready to go into to Gaza, was the one that said most of the Muslim world is appalled about what they're seeing because Gaza had hospitals. They had so many hospitals per person. They say we don't even have that in the Arab world. We're giving all these Gazans this money and we don't even have these things for ourselves. The regular Muslim on the street in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, was just amazed, appalled that the Gazans had all this given to them by the Jews, and they didn't have it.
The issue was that on the surface, Gaza was a pretty decent place. It had lots of hospitals, parks, schools, shops, restaurants, because it was wholly funded by Europe, the United States, and other Muslim nations. They were parasites, and so much money was thrown there, billions and billions and billions, that not all of it went to rockets and tunnels. Some of it went to make a pretty decent enclave. Now it's all destroyed because of what they did on 10/7. But they were not in an outdoor prison.
Right.
They were living, not as well, obviously, as the oil fiefdoms, but they were pretty effective as parasites.
Well, if you look at Gaza before, it was a thriving metropolis, a beautiful city before it got bombed into obliteration. But even today, if you were to give $25 billion or whatever the figure would be to Gaza to rebuild it, who would you give it to, and who would rebuild it?
Right. That's what my point is. First of all, I don't think it can be done for $25 billion. It's too many people living in there, and it's and the whole place is torn up. and Hamas is not going to allow you to do that unless all the money is channeled through them, and their primary goal is control and weapons and the like. So yeah, there is no one. You cannot hire people to work there,
Yep.
and you're not going to hire construction companies, and for what? Yeah, it's an unsolvable problem, and that's one of the problems that Israel made, is they turned the whole world against them by destroying Gaza, based on what happened on October 7th, where Israel did a lousy job of communicating the harm that was perpetrated on them, so they lost the public opinion narrative. And by destroying Gaza, what they created is the requirement of having to feed those who want to annihilate them, who are religious zealots wanting to annihilate them, and now they're responsible for to feed them and care for them. Nothing but parasites. I mean, Israel put itself in just such a crazy position. That's why I said that I think that Israel is no longer sane, that Israel now can't be trusted with nuclear weapons, because their actions show that they're not thinking.
They're bordering on knee-jerk reactions, actually. I think something happens and they just have to respond to it, regardless of what the consequences are going to be.
Yeah, that would be a lot like the United States, except for in the United States, we actually create the thing that we respond to. The Gulf of Tonkin incident didn't occur. We got the Vietnam War. The Lusitania was a deliberate hoax by the United States and Great Britain to bring America into the World War, and so just played the Maine was a inside job.
Yeah.
There were no Al Qaeda members or weapons of mass destruction in Iran. There were no one in Afghanistan had anything to do with 9/11. We actually make up the pretense. We create the regime change in Ukraine and then blame the Russians. And, everybody wants, let's go kill some Ruskies. We said, Assad's a bad dude. Okay, so he was a bad dude, but you just replaced him with the Islamic State. Gaddafi was a bad dude and pretty average as an Islamic dictator, but you replaced him with terrorists that sell women as sex slaves. It's so easy to fool people.
I remember that night when we did that, and I was just thinking to myself, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I know that in the Iraq and Afghani wars, for the first 7 or 8 years, I was the only voice against them. There wasn't a single other voice in the media, and that's why I was doing, thousands of talk radio shows. I was the one person that would say, "Let me tell you why this is making a bad situation worse," and saying, "Well, there's no chance of success here, and why we should not have done this." And there was nobody else that would speak out against them.
Yeah, I know. You would think that after the debacles in Korea, in Vietnam, and both of those places had histories. Vietnam especially, the French couldn't handle the Vietnam down there, so the United States had to go in and show them how to do it. Well, that didn't work out too good. And all the way up through now, you get all these wars that we should not have been. It seemed like somebody along the way would have said, "Hey,
don't do this anymore. Stop it." Yeah, Vietnam was such a disaster. The South Vietnamese government was so corrupt, and we were supplying the Russians with the ability to arm the North Vietnamese. We were using terrorist tactics in the villages with napalm and the like in Agent Orange. The men that fought were so badly abused. Our tactics were hellacious.
Mm-hmm.
And then we followed that up with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, where the biggest casualty was American suicides, because the mission was insane. And
well, I got a little story about that. My oldest son was in Afghanistan and Iraq twice. And I tell you, sitting by that phone every day, just waiting for the phone calls, that's a mess.
Yeah.
But anyway, when he got back, he used the GI Bill to get a degree in psychology, and actually got a master's degree in it. And he counseled military potential suicides. They'd call him up and he'd try to talk them down. So that's a real thing. I mean, and it's going on. More people have died by suicide, I think, than were killed in action.
Both hugely more.
22 a day is their number. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tragic what's happened in terms of suicides. And I remember I did a report on it several years ago, and the numbers are in the overall. If you look at the suicides from Iraq and Afghanistan in terms of U.S. Military personnel, rather than looking at 10,000 Americans killed, the number of Americans killed is up in the 250,000 that took their lives. And the abuse of psychiatric drugs to try to keep people alive is also just this terrible travesty. And the percentage of Americans now that are on mind-altering, personality-altering drugs is almost as big as a crime as the suicides. But yeah, it's when you tell people that you're going over there and you're fighting for America and America's freedom, and you realize there was nothing there that had anything to do with America. So you've been lied to. And then you're telling them that you're liberating these people, and you didn't fight. You never fought an army, ever. You were fighting Islamic civilians, and the people you were told you were liberating are trying to kill you on the daily. Yeah. And if you're in Afghanistan, you're freeing communities from the Taliban and giving them back to the tribal leaders. The moment you do, they're playing bocce ball.
Yeah.
They're taking little 4 and 6-year-old boys and raping them, gang raping them. You do that. You're flying an Apache helicopter, and you're gunning down your own. The A-10s. Number one cause of death in theater was friendly fire, and we lied about it.
Yep.
And the whole thing was just a disgusting patriotic parade of pathetic nonsense. It's so sad. And when I spoke out against it, initially, all I was done is just called all manner of dirty names, and finally you do it so long that now everybody knows it was a mistake, but way too late. And we're still not out of Iraq.
No,
we're still there.
Still have bases there.
Yeah, still there. Yeah, we went into Afghanistan, which was had periphery areas controlled by the Taliban, and only controlled by the Taliban because the United States rented the Taliban to attack Russia by Zygmunt Brzezinski and Jimmy the Peanut Farmer. And once we left them with all of their weapons. And so they managed to carve out places in Afghanistan, but it was mostly the Northern Alliance that controlled most of the country, including Kandahar. And by the time we were done, the Northern Alliance was done, and the Taliban controlled the entire country. So our time in Afghanistan was wholly and totally counterproductive. We made a bad situation worse. And with Iraq, we gave Iraq to Iran. So loss of lives, not just for nothing, to make bad situations worse.
Well, it goes back to, I think, a lot of it has to do with indoctrination in this country through the military. Mm-hmm. Kids come in there, they join up, and they're taught how to be killers. Your rational thoughts driven out of you, conscience is driven out of you. You're trained to obey orders, no questions asked, no matter the consequence.
Yeah.
we sent them over there to do that job, and they get caught up in a crucible of just total destruction. It's got to have a mind-blowing effect.
When you realize the people you're supposed to be helping are trying to kill you, that's a pretty difficult position to put a young person. But the U.S. did an analysis of our early tenure in World War II. And what we found is that the American infantrymen would not shoot to kill. They would not target a German or Japanese soldier. Their sense of morality of killing another person that you don't even know overwhelmed their training to shoot and kill. And so when we got to Vietnam, it became epidemic. We would, the average infantryman would shoot 20,000 rounds and wouldn't have a single confirmed kill. We were not shooting to kill. And so the military said, well, that's just not going to work. So at the military college, they said, well, what we need to do is we need to dehumanize our enemies. And that's what they did. So if you go into the military now, part of the training is to dehumanize the enemy and to create this worshipful view of the United States and its leaders. And it is completely disorienting, completely immoral. And what it produces is wanton killers. And then it becomes even worse because when they come back from being mass murderers, kidnappers, they become police in America. And that's why the police in America are so belligerent. That's why, the military, ex-military that are part of ICE are just so uncontrollable, is that they come back with a mindset that's toxic and broken moral compass.
Well, I don't think you can get a job in the federal government, any kind of law enforcement, unless you're in ex-military.
Yeah, that's correct.
ICE.
It's prerequisite.
ICE will take you.
ICE will take anybody. Yeah,
ICE. ICE.
Yeah, that's Trump's brown shirts. Here is as picky as was Hitler on his brown shirts. But you're correct, and it is considered even in politics a badge of honor to have served. And I'm telling you that if you were deployed in a combat situation and you were part of the product of post-Vietnam of we're going to indoctrinate you to view whoever we tell you is the enemy as subhuman. Mm-hmm. You're no better than the Roman Catholic Church against Jews for 18 centuries or exactly. Muslims against Jews today.
Exactly.
That's it's inexcusable, and it turns leaders into immoral zombies. And that's what we have. So anyway, we need, this has been a program mostly on the news and the overall condition of the world and how it pertains to the time of trouble that Israel has now entered. But that's our job.
Mm-hmm.
We need to tell you that the situation we're in is irresolvable, that for hundreds of different reasons, the world that is in a death spiral. That life is going to be valueless. Anarchy is going to reign. The president of the most powerful country in the world is Satan, literally in the flesh. Israel has lost its moral compass. And the world's a powder keg. It's ready to explode. And on many, many, many different levels at the same time. The only two countries that are showing any amount of maturity in terms of not escalating are Russia and China. Oh. Russia has pushed it almost to the point of nonsense. Its unwillingness to respond. And China is in a unique position. They've won economically, from a manufacturing point of view, militarily, they've won. But what do they win if America craters? Because it'll take their markets with them. It'll take Europe and South America. And so now what did China win? They make too much to consume in their own country. So they're actually trying to slow America's demise.
Right. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, the position we're in. And this notion that they're somehow inferior. No, I mean, look at their cars now. Look at their buildings. Look at their transportation. Look at their weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Their version of the B-2 bomber is bigger, faster, and half the price. Their version of the biggest of the U.S. aircraft carriers, theirs are bigger, far more capable, and at half the price, and they can make one every year, and we can't make one every 20 years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
America builds one ship a year of any consequence. The Chinese are building 300 a year of great consequence.
I watched a video on that, how they do it. It's just like an assembly line. In America, you sits in a dry dock and it's stationary, but over there it's an assembly line. It's just like making a car.
Yes, and 90% of what they're making is commercial. They're transports of either gas, oil, or container ships, and they're the best in the world. In fact, 90% of the world's future orders for commercial ships are going to China. They make a better product and faster and for less money. And their former competitors, Japan's all but gone as a nation. Their debt to GDP ratios make America look almost flush. And South Korea has lost their mojo in it. So it's shipping is a monopoly now of China, militarily and also commercially. So we're in. I don't know if you noticed, but the yuan is rising in price tremendously against the dollar, which is not what the Chinese want. They do not want their currency to rise against the dollar, but because it's gold backed now, and it's the favored currency of the world, they can't keep it from rising against the dollar. But lowering the value of your currency is actually helpful if you're a manufacturing country. But the United States is doing such a bad job of managing its currency that it's at all-time highs. So you just need to be aware. I mean, if you're Covenant, you need to know what you're getting into, where the world is going. You need to be aware of it, even if you don't play in it. We have to be the voice that says, this is what's going to happen. This is why it's happening. Disengage from the political leaders who are misleading you. Disengage from the religious leaders who are misleading you. Come to yadayah.com. Every book is free. Every vlog is free. We want nothing from you. We're just giving you access to quality information, not written by an AI. Now they say that you can't even write a 3-page paper without the AI. Well, I'm here to tell you that, oh, yes, you can.
Been done.
Yeah. We're just now in the process of publishing another 1,500 pages. So, and that was a hobby in the spare time now. So yes, you can. And you can learn and say things that are so profoundly important and unheralded, and the AI can't do any of that.
AI still calls it Noah's Ark, doesn't it?
Yeah, they do. They would still call it Noah's Ark, and it is not Noah. He's Noach. It's a name comprised of 2 letters. It's the reverse of the first 2 letters in Chinook's name, because he happens to be the same fellow. And it's a teba. And a teba is a vessel of insights and a ship for the harvest. So it's a ship for the ingathering, and a vessel of insights is what the word means. And it's a teba. It's only an ark if you prefer Latin to the revealed language, which was Hebrew. And I can assure you that Latin wasn't even a language at the time that was revealed.
Yeah.
It's amazing how nourishing the truth is when you pull the lies away.
It is. You're not dealing with lies about giants. Nephilim were not giants. Based on the fall, it's a verb that means to fall. They were the fallen, and they were the fallen because they were vicious and ruthless and corrupting and horrible people. And they were, the Nasalma man experiment did not work well.
Hmm.
And most people don't even know what a Nasalma is. I would think that if you were to ask your AI, not one that is keyed to our books, but if you were just to ask an AI what's a Nasalma, it would be clueless. Would
Yeah.
not be able
Wind,
to answer
breath.
the question. And it is the single most important thing you could know about the uniqueness of humanity. And if you were to ask the AI what's a soul, they couldn't even answer that question because science can't answer that question. A human consciousness period exists outside of the dimensions that we have purview to. It's like dark energy and dark matter. It's beyond our three-dimensional understanding of the world. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth. It will dazzle your neurons if you'll go to yadayat.com. There is so much to read and so much to learn. More fun than swinging a hammer, right? Right, Roger?
It is the only. Pardon me.
That's more fun than swinging a hammer.
It's way more fun than swinging a hammer, especially when you miss and hit your thumb. Yeah.
Yeah, and less dangerous than helmet diving outside of nuclear power plants.
I tell you, I was nuts doing it, but I thought it was fun at the time. But yeah, way funner than that.
Yeah, doing things that are like that, hard hat diving, and doing welding and things like that, extending intake tubes for things like a nuclear power plant where one mistake and you're dead. There is an adrenaline rush that's associated with that because there isn't even one in 100,000 people that can do what you're about to do. That it is a really hard-won skill set that very, very few people have, and that you can execute what would kill most everybody, and you can pull it off and prevail. That is, there's a real sense of satisfaction in that.
Well, yes, that's true. And it was exciting at the time. And you do get a sense of satisfaction from it. Although sometimes the jobs are really tough and there were some pretty crummy ones out there that weren't too cool. But overall, it was a good experience. And I remember that past fondly. Yeah.
When you're diving in either really, really cold water or really murky water versus you had one job that was off of St. Croix here. There's a really big difference in the environment that you're working in.
Absolutely. Being able to see and not be freezing to death that makes a huge difference. When you're doing everything in the dark by feel and you don't know what you're going to touch next, that's a whole nother deal.
Yeah. It's the reason why I think it's going to be really cool that augments all of our senses and our processing capability before releasing us out of 3D, so that we will be able to see everything that's happening around us and perceive it and understand it and respond to it in a really enjoyable way. That's part of the whole Covenant benefit package.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It was a pretty productive review of the news. It's always a pleasure to have you, Roger. We definitely appreciate
much, Craig. I'm glad to be here.
being here. You're one of the really, really good guys. It's just so comfortable being in with a group of guys that are like Roger and Kevin here. I mean, it's real, genuine, reliable, committed, intelligent, moral, inquisitive, outspoken, fearless. I mean, It's a pretty unusual group of guys, isn't it? And gals. I mean, we have some women that are pretty fearless and very intellectually
absolutely.
gifted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to get a few of the gals. We have occasionally I'm able to round Leia up, and sometimes you get Mariah. But there's more women in the covenant. We should be able to get a few of them to participate here in the show, so that we're a little more even. But we are mirroring Yahweh's ratios of, if you look at the number of men versus the number of women that he worked through and talked through in time. I was actually very pro women. In fact, during a time when women had no rights, there was one time when 5 women came to Moshe and said, our father didn't have any sons, and we think we as women ought to be able to inherit his land and his possessions. And in the ancient world, the answer would be absolutely no. And if you got married as a woman with possessions, they would be taken by your husband. And so they came to Moshe and said, we want a ruling on this. And Moshe went to Yahweh and said, okay, what do you think? And God says, what do you mean, what do I think? the women inherit what was given to them. But and then Moshe came back later and says, there's some men that are complaining that what if they marry outside of their group, and then it's taken by others that it doesn't belong to. It says, yeah, I don't want that to happen. Marry within your group, and you keep your possessions. That's the way it should be. Women should be treated fairly.
Right. Yeah, they all go back in 50 years anyway, guys. What are you worried about?
Yeah, well, all your possessions don't, but certainly the land does. Yes. So your flocks of sheep wouldn't, and but the your seeds wouldn't for crops, but the field would. Yep. Which is kind of interesting how a fellow like Boaz ended up being the parochial mayor of Bethlehem. One of the things it does demonstrate is that I was fully aware, and he has no problem with the fact we are not all born equally. We think at different speeds, we understand at different rates, we have different levels of passion and commitment and resolve. And you look at most of the Gen Zers, and not in our family, but you look most of the Gen Zers, it doesn't take much to knock them off course. And yet you take the 3 of us, it would take, I'm not even positive it could be done. In fact, I would go as far as to say you're never going to knock us off course, ever.
Just going to adapt and overcome.
We will. We'll use whatever you're going to throw at us as an incentive to be tougher and stronger and more resolute than ever before. But Boaz was quite the guy. I mean, obviously he was also Ethan Ha-Izraki, and I mean he gave both barrels to the king. So did his wife. I mean, so they're not easily intimidated. So yes, it does. God does have that leveling of the Yobel every 50 years, where all debts are free, all slaves, people are free, and the land returns. But there are people who just work harder, a little smarter, and God's got no problem with that, so long as you play by the rules. Don't cheat other people. You know what was like with old Boaz there. He had the corners of his fields that God said leave them open for anybody. So a woman came who wasn't Moabite. She came and she was harvesting away, man. She was taking as much as she could grab. And Boaz, rather than shooing her away and saying, "What are you doing stealing from my field?" says, "No, I first
leave
of all,
a little more for her. Leave a little more."
Yeah, I know who you are. You're welcome here in my field. In fact, I don't want you to go to any other fields. My fields are your fields. And I'm just going to say one thing, and that is to all of my other Ammas, do not mock her. That's going to be a really bad thing. Don't pick a fight with this woman. And, so he was playing by the rules. And that whole idea of the sandal game, and he went in to see, whether or not he could marry her. It's has all to do with a Torah teaching as to when a woman loses her husband, who is responsible for her, because the Torah doesn't want her to be a cast outside of the community and abandoned as a widow, and so the Torah has a whole procedure for that, and it goes through the story of tossing sandals, and
It's the best explanation
yeah,
of how it's supposed to work.
yeah. So it's the person that's in a position to be able to take care of her. And you got to realize it's an economic thing. She's going to need support. It becomes responsible, and you go to the most responsible first, and if that person says no can do, then the next person, and Boaz said, oh, well, I'll do it then. If you're opting out, yeah, you got first choice here. She's a cutie, by the way. She's a fireball. But you're opting out. I'm in. There we go. I just love the way he knew the Torah, played by the rules of the Torah, was enormously successful. And look what they delivered. They delivered Dode 3 times.
Yeah.
Pretty cool story. Pretty soon they get to go translate as soon as we get these superscripts all done. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was my idea. But our problem was the glossary doesn't work without the superscripts, because you've got to be able to say, was it an ain or an aleph that started this
If
word?
Joe was a little less effective, if Joe was a little less effective and had been able to like mess around with making it work, because he came up with that answer pretty quick. Oh, let me XYZ and it works. If he had been able to do that and was a little less effective, we wouldn't be in this.
One of the things that was there is that the glossary came up, and I took it down the same day, because I was looking at the words the way they were highlighted, and esh was defined as time, and there is an esh with an ain that is time. And it's used maybe 1/10% as much as the esh that is used that describes as a preposition. It means to be with, among, included in a group. And that's with the aleph. And it went to the one with the ain because they were transliterated the same. And I said, oh my God, this is not going to work. We have a problem here. How are we going to resolve this? And knowing now that the resolution was an enormous investment of time, but it's a really cool resolution. It looks great too.
It does.
That is what we're about. And now with these 1,500 new pages, one book is almost all done with the superscript. I wrote it with superscript. And so it's probably 80% superscript already. One's about half, and one was about a quarter. So we're dealing with the one that's a quarter right now, and it's going to take a little while. And all the while, I want to go to Ruth and translate it, because I'm just really itching to see how many really cool insights we can deduce from the Ruth and Boaz story, which I think is the most interesting prophecy of them all. And I love the prophecy of the lesser and greater luminaries, but I think the Ruth and Boaz thing is the kind of the ultimate love story of the Torah. And I know it's 2 books removed from the Torah, but it comes before anything else. I mean, it's you got the Torah, you got Yosha, which is an extension of the Torah, you got the period of the Judges, and then it's Ruth.
I'm excited to see it.
Excited.
Yeah, and I love a turn of phrase. I love words, and I love a turn of phrase, and it's got, my way, that is the best speech in the Torah. Where you go, I go.
Yeah, that's
your people, my people. Your God is my God. I think that is as good as it gets, and it underscores my understanding that Yisraelite and Yehud is a naming convention. It's not an ethnicity; it's a naming convention. Powerful naming convention, but that's what it is. It's a naming convention, and so she, as a Moabite, which would have been the descendants of Lot, which was, he was a Babylonian like the rest of the clan, that been really no meaningful difference in their ethnicity. And so it was strictly a naming convention. And so she belonged as much as the rest of them did. I had somebody, I haven't answered them yet, but said, do you consider yourself a Yehud? Well, when you consider what the word is, sure.
Sure. Mhm.
Beloved of Yah, absolutely. Do you consider yourself a Yisraelite? Well, based upon the name of the word, yes. In terms of the
Absolutely.
naming convention, as Yahweh used it to separate Yisraelites from Goyim, no. In terms of representing what the name means, absolutely.
Hmm.
So I don't know how you answer a question. Yes, no.
You're the only one that can do it.
No, thank you. Well, thank you. I enjoyed the program. Thanks, gentlemen. We'll look forward to doing another one tomorrow. Good day.
Absolutely.